fastest way to build a $10 million business is often not the fastest way to build a $100 million business. If you wanted to build a building that was 10 stories tall, you would start with a very different foundation. Now imagine you built a 10-story building and then said, okay, I want to build a 100-story building using the same foundation. You wouldn't be able to. But that's exactly what most entrepreneurs do when they're trying to scale and they wonder why they're stuck. It's because they built it wrong to begin with, because they were in the wrong opportunity vehicle. One of the big things that took me too long to learn is it's the size of the slice of the pie that matters, not the shape of the slice of the pie. They obsess about the shape of the slice rather than having a slice that's like this of a much bigger pie. The average IPO founder, when a company IPOs, owns 12.5% of the company they founded. Because the more people you make money, the more money you ultimately make. 20-year-olds stay poor because they start trying to earn rather than trying to learn. They did a survey of high school seniors. 52% believe that they will be a millionaire by 25. It's delusion. You can try and roll the dice and have a 1 in 1,000 shot of being a millionaire in 90 days. Or I can guarantee that you'll be a millionaire in a decade. Which would you prefer? And so I want to give you a quick example of two guys about the same age that took two very different directions in life. One of them went to another guy who was a little bit older, tried to learn the basics of editing video. Used the buddy to get a job interview, and he'd learned enough that he could get a job offer. This particular company had a huge suite of other people who were significantly more advanced. Creative director who's done multiple big brands that he had the ability to learn from. He gets a $60,000 offer, which is a solid amount of money for editing with basically no experience, who then, rather than accept the job, he asked for $3,000 more. Because what he thought he had to do was earn rather than learn. The business is obviously not going to do that. What this guy does is he starts trying to negotiate back and forth, wheels and deals, and then eventually gets a job to be the lead head honcho of video editing at some small business that has no other mentors. There's no other people ahead of him. He took the right hook in his career 12 weeks after getting into it, and now they're the ones who are trying to extract as much from him rather than coming into a business where he's the small man on the totem pole and he can learn from everyone else, which would maximize for his long-term net worth. When you're early on, you learn this much and you think you know everything. And it's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The more you learn in a specific skill, the more you realize you don't know. Other guy, same idea, wanted to make money, but had zero skills because he's 17 years old. Of course he would have no skills. He decided, because he talked to a mentor who was older than him and said, hey, I think you have a proclivity for sales. I think you'd be good at it. He said, whatever the minimum quota is that they tell you to do an activity, double it. This was a sales role, and so he was required to do 100 calls a day. He did 200 calls a day. Why? Because he's not as skilled. So he has to do twice the work in order to get the same output as somebody who's more experienced. The mentor also said, go and spend as much time as you possibly can with the number one guy. Listen to everything he does and watch what he does. So that's what he did. And then he proved himself as number one on that bottom team. Then he got promoted. The youngest guy there worked his way up. What he realized was that no one was going to give him respect based on his age. He stacked his way up, then became one of the top closers in the company, where many people were experts at sales. And he was able to learn from them because he was hungry and he did extra hours. Now, at this point in his career, he could, right now, probably start $1 million a year business, or he could reinvest. And so he got another opportunity to work at a much more prestigious company, where he'll get even bigger and better experience. And guess what? He's gonna get paid less than he was making in his current job. Why would he do it? Because he's smart, not thinking short. If you go for the earning early, you stop the learning. And the moment you stop the learning is when you decide and you tell the universe that I have made enough. This is enough for me. Start at the bottom and learn every skill along the way.
The other great reason for working harder is that the harder you work, the more you realize what you used to think was hard work isn't even close to what you're capable of. Because if you want to know what the most dangerous money-making combo in the world, it's work ethic and time. Because once you realize just how much more work it takes to get from good to great, you realize you can only be great at a few things and you're forced to ignore the rest. It just takes work, shitloads and shitloads of work. And every time I dress it up or cut a corner, I get brutally reminded by life that the work just needs doing. So yes, this is your friendly reminder that it's okay to work on weekends. I think one of my favorite parables about work is that there was an art class. They split the class into two groups. And one group, they said, make the absolute best pot and turn in one pot. And the other group, they said, make as many pots as you possibly can. At the end of the semester, the team that had to make as many pots as humanly possible not only made more pots, but also ended up making better pots than the one that spent all of their time trying to make one. The work just needs doing, and no one's gonna do it for you.
Strategy is easy, execution is hard. It's the execution risk that is the much bigger risk for most businesses. If you deliver dry cleaning that is always clean, always, and always on time, you'll have an exceptional business. The strategy isn't complicated. It's the execution is where everyone fails. But this is the thing, is that the strategy is the new and exciting thing. People allocate tons of attention, tons of time to new strategies, new ideas, rather than making the obvious truth of, if I deliver everyone their clothes on time and they are always perfectly clean, this business will work. You don't need to have any fancy play to be successful. You just have to be willing to get the consistent yardage. People want clean clothes. People want them fast. People want good service. And if you execute on that for 10 years and you fill every hole in the bucket, your business grows by default because your competitors won't do that. This is where I say, like, business is not hard in that it is not complicated. It is hard because people cannot stay focused on the same thing for a long period of time. It's also because once people make a certain amount of money, if they only did it for the income, they're trying to find the next thing that's gonna make them more income rather than the mission of the business.
Warren Buffett once said, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. I like to think of yeses that I give to other people as withdrawals from my personal energy account. And I think of no's as deposits into my goal account. Here's how Warren Buffett told people to make goals. He said, write down your 25 top goals in life. He said, really think about it. Make them in order, 1 to 25. Then circle the top 5. Tear off everything underneath and throw it away, because those are the only things that matter. I learned $6 million lessons at my first job, working hot summers as an 18-year-old in a warehouse at a 5th generation fur coat dealer. And this business made it through 2 world wars, multiple recessions, and these lessons I have taken with me for life. The first lesson he ever taught me was how to deal with angry customers. This lady comes in and she is piss angry. She's like,
where's Johnny? He sold me this coat and this button came off. This is so ridiculous. I spent so much money on this coat.
Blah, blah, blah. She's just making a scene. I didn't go in the retail store that much because, like, I looked like an 18-year-old and I wasn't gonna be selling any $25,000 coats. John, the owner of the store, I'm on the other side of the door so she can't see me, and he's walking towards me to turn out to go deal with her. As he's walking towards me, I see him roll his eyes, and then as he turns a corner, he goes right into character. Mrs. Johnson, that is ridiculous. I cannot believe that you had a coat that had a button that was missing. Who sold you that coat? I need to find them right now. We'll get rid of them. Did anyone see you with the coat without the button? We're gonna get to the bottom of this right now. All of a sudden, her whole tone changes. She started backpedaling. And she's like, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, it was just a button. No, we need to get to the bottom of this. This is not acceptable. And she all of a sudden became calm as can be. She's like, you know what? I just want it to be fixed. If you could fix the coat. And he grabbed it from me. He's like, we're gonna handle this right now. He goes to the back. They fix the thing in 5 minutes. He hands it back to her and she's like, oh, John, you're always the best. Thank you so much for dealing with this. I'm sorry, I was a little bit over the top. I just, I've spent so much in the jacket. And he's like, as you should be. She walked out the door, he turned him in, he was like, and he said, there can only be one person in the angry boat. So whenever someone comes in the angry boat, what most people try and do is they try and downplay them. And so they say, well, it's not that big of a deal. And what happens is the person doesn't feel validated. The person who's upset then increases how angry they are because they want the person to validate why they're angry. And so what happens is they just keep getting angry and this person keeps trying to make them less angry. And then it just creates more and more of a discrepancy between the two people. Now the flip side is he got in the angry boat and so she had to get out of the angry boat. And so whenever you're dealing with an upset customer, you need to validate their anger. And in a real way, if something was messed up and you have very high standards for your business, the moment you say it's not a big deal, it means you're not actually taking responsibility. Even if their complaint is ridiculous, it still is your responsibility. So the first thing we have to understand is the psychology of the rich versus the psychology of the poor. The first encounter I had with like super wealth, I remember I was working at Smoothie King. I was a blender tender. One of my buddies, he's in the back with his feet up. He's flipping through a magazine. He's like, dude, check this out. This guy bought a $50,000 burger. Man, that's crazy. Who would spend $50,000 on a burger? I thought about it more and more. If I go and get lunch, it costs me $12 for the burger, the fries, and the Coke, whatever. He had said it was some finance guy who had made like $100 million that year. If he made $100 million and he worked 2,000 hours, he made $50,000 an hour. I was making $7 an hour and my burger cost me $12. His $50,000 burger was cheaper for him
for his amount of money that he was making than my $12 lunch was for me. That was a huge shift for me where I realized I'm playing this game wrong and I'm not empathizing with the rich because he's got to be thinking differently than I am to be able to afford a $50,000 burger. It also kind of makes sense for him. The second is how we create products that specifically serve rich people. They think differently and want different things. The best thing to do is study luxury brands. When you shop at a high-end store, they'll offer you champagne while you shop. You're gonna have somebody who's assigned to you the moment you walk in the door. What can I get for you? They can have and deliver that better experience because of the premium and luxury prices they charge.
The longer you can delay when you need to be rewarded for the work that you do, the greater the outcome is. It's kind of like a plane taking off. The longer the runway, the bigger the plane. And so a lot of people can barely even get a bottle rocket off the ground because they have such a short attention span and such a need for immediate reward. If you feel like you're behind where you should be by now, if you feel like you're losing, if you're not sure it's gonna work, there's nothing wrong with you. That is entrepreneurship. You're on the right path. You're doing the right things. You're seeing the milestones along the way, but the milestones aren't parades. It's uncertainty. It's a sleepless nights. It's not knowing if you can make payroll. It's not even being sure that the 5 years you put into this idea is actually going to turn into something that you'll get credit for eventually. The biggest shift that I had internally during those harder times was that I am the output of my work. All of this effort is to create who I want to become. I get to use that as my reward every day rather than the approval of strangers. Sitting in uncertainty is the feeling of entrepreneurship.
Capitalism is the only system where both people say thank you after an exchange. It means both parties are better. And if someone threatens you, that's different. That's just a form of robbery. But if I say, would you like this thing? And the other person says yes, and they give me money, and I give them the thing, no harm was done. So in your business, if you have a one-time product, especially that's a little bit bigger in purchase, having little things that you can do, even if you didn't make money on them, and then you know that on average you get customers to buy 2 more products from you, it more than makes up for the effort and cost of time that you put into it. And this leads me to my final lesson. This fur coat dealer was able to withstand all of the PETA pressures and all of the, people being upset about animals, even though they wear leather and they eat meat every day. He was able to weather that for 5 generations because he never stopped doing the boring work. What they do has not changed fundamentally in years. All they did was get better and better and better at it. One of the things that I found through all of the portfolio companies that we work with, we own acquisition.com, the portfolio is $200 million a year. The difference between small business owners and the big business owners is that the big business owners do the same thing for a very long period of time. They do all the things that right now you probably know you should be doing but aren't in your business. They just do those. They just do all the basics every time, every day. And if you're like, man, but it's gonna take me time to set up a blog. It's gonna take me time to do email follow-up consistently. It's gonna take me time to create content. It's gonna take me time to build a sales team. Yeah, those are all the things that you probably know you should do. And they take time, which is why building a business that's big takes big time, but it also creates even bigger outcomes.